Alright guys, so what's going on? I'm going to do another Q&A here because I've read some questions that I believe need to have some answers to them, because they are some questions that are asked on a regular basis. Since I'm not driving and kind of all over the place with dealing with home and work and another driver and everything all at once, I'm able to look at the comments a little more clearly, and I've tried to make a point to put the ones to the side that I want to answer, because they get asked in different ways but the same question overall on a regular basis. Okay, so the question is it hard to get on with the carrier after you have a cargo van and insurance and licenses and DOT and all that handled? Now this question goes along with another question that gets asked pretty regular. Do I need insurance, the liability, the cargo insurance, and a DOT number? Some are just asking about the insurances, some are asking about the DOT number, so I'm going to answer this all in one. Now, once you have your own van, if you've decided that's the route you're going, you got your own van, you're going to do expediting, you pretty much have two choices at that point. The first one is to sign on with the carrier. The second option is to run as an independent under your own authority. Those are your two basic options if you have your own van. If you sign on with a carrier, as far as your insurance is concerned, there's going to be some carriers that you'll get your insurance through the carrier. You won't be required to find it on your own, which makes it obviously a little more simplified to go through that process. And some carriers also makes the insurance a lot cheaper. Now there's other carriers, like the carrier I'm on, it's pretty much the same cost through them as it is if I went on my own. It's just they prefer to deal with the insurance provider that they deal with. And then there are some carriers that are going to want you to get your insurance on your own. Now some of those carriers may be exclusive, some of them may allow multi-carrier. So those are going to be questions you have to ask the carrier when you call them. Do they provide the insurance or do they not provide the insurance? Now if you've decided you're going the independent route, then obviously you need your operating authority, which is your DOT number, and you need to get your own liability insurance, and you need to get your own cargo insurance. Signing on with the carrier, you do not need a DOT number. Not at all. The carrier has the DOT number and all of the operating authority that you are running under when you haul loads through them. To summarize, if you run with the carrier, you may need your own insurance and you may not. It's up to the carrier. Some carriers provide it, some don't. As far as the DOT number, you do not need a DOT number to run with the carrier. Alright, now the next question. Do you need an LLC, DOT, and MC number for a cargo van? Now, to this guy directly, I have a question. He's asking about these things for a cargo van. Are you wanting to run independent, or are you wanting to run under a carrier? So to answer the first part of the question, which is, do you need an LLC? I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you legal advice, but my basic understanding of getting an LLC is it really is dependent on your business model and what you're doing. As far as one person and you're the one driving the van and you're going to be out there, it doesn't really make much sense to get an LLC, because you're really not protecting anything. You're behind the wheel, so they're still going to be able to come after you personally, from my understanding, if there's an accident. LLC, if you have long-term plans and you're trying to immediately try to build business credit and you have plans of building in the future, I think that it's advisable to go ahead and open an LLC or incorporate or do whatever you're going to do at the beginning if you have longer-term, bigger plans. If you have more than one vehicle and you have a fleet, then yeah, it's going to benefit you to get an LLC, obviously, at that point, because then it offers you some protection from any of your other vehicles with the drivers. Now still, there's going to be legal ways around it, I'm sure, and it's not a foolproof plan, but that's the basic gist of getting your LLC, to my understanding. To the second part of that question, as far as the DOT and MC number, again, I answered that in the first question, and it's basically, if you're going to run as an independent under your own authority, then yes, you have to go and get those things. That's part of getting your authority. So that's a whole nother question in itself. Next question. What percentage of the time do you ship 3 pallets? The reason why I'm asking is because you lose your bed. Now, 3 skids, there are vans out there that can get 3 full, 48 by 48s or 51s by 51s and still have a permanent bunk. That's usually going to be your Sprinter van, your Mercedes Sprinter, Freightliner Sprinter, the extended ones. My van specifically, I have, I believe, 164 inches, 160 some odd inches, somewhere in that range, from the doors closed to the back of the seats, to where I sit the seats. I have my cargo area set up to where I have 124 inches up to the edge of my bunk, which means most pallets are 40 by 48. So you just want to make sure that when they load it, they're loading it to where the 40 is the length. So I can fit 3 regular sized 40 by 48 skids back to back to back up to my bed and keep my bed. Now anytime obviously I exceed that 124 inches and it's above 16 inches in height, I'm going to have to fold my bunk up. Now the percentage of the time that I lose my bunk and I don't have a bunk to sleep in overnight, I'd have to say, man, maybe 1% or less. I don't really have an exact percent on that. I do know that out of all the information I keep, like 75% of the loads that I carry would fit into an extended cargo van, which means in an extended cargo van in the Ford, it's like 125 inches roughly, and you only have like 48 inches or so in height. So at least 75% of my loads are to where I know that I keep my bunk and it would fit in a cargo van. As I said, I don't lose my bunk that often. It's not really that big of an issue. So as I said, I'd have to say it's a really small percentage of me actually losing my bunk and not being able to sleep in it. Because many of the times that I do lose my bunk, if it does go past that 120 some odd inches, I'm able to pick up the freight, deliver the freight before it's ever time to go to bed. Now, if I had to give you a percentage of the amount of time that I lose my bunk, just that I have to lift it, that's still a really small percentage. I'd say maybe 3% of the time. It's not very often that you have to use that much space in order to, haul the freight. Okay, so here's a question. This one specifically is asking about living in Missouri, but I get the question a lot, and in the group and on my channel, as far as living in California or anywhere out west or in the Northwest. Is there any carriers that'll hire you? Now, one, being west of the Mississippi, you're going to really shrink the amount of expedite carriers that are based in those areas. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some local couriers and whatnot, but as far as expediting carriers, there's not very many west. So the gist of this is, now if you live west of the Mississippi and you want to expedite, now there's a couple of variables in there. If you own your own van, it's going to be even easier for you to get on with the carrier, because the carrier will take you, but it's going to be under the understanding of, hey, these are our freight lanes. These are the freight lanes in general for expediting altogether. You need to know those things. So say if you live in California or up in Oregon, not a lot of freight's going out there with certain carriers. There's some smaller carriers that are getting out to California on a regular basis. They actually go up to Oregon pretty semi-regular. But most of the carriers do not go out that way because the freight is super cheap coming out, and it's cheaper than what it should be to even take it out to the West Coast. So in saying all that, I'm saying that you may not get home very often, so you need to understand it. If you're agreeable to that and you understand that and that's what you want to do, then it's going to make it even easier for you to get on with the carrier if you own your own van. Now, if you don't own a van and you're trying to get on with a fleet owner, it's kind of the same situation as far as you need to know how often you're going to make it home, which isn't going to be very. If you're agreeable to that and you're just ready to drive, they might take you. The only reason some fleet owners may not is because obviously you're all the way out west, and chances are if you don't like the gig, you're going to end up shooting all the way home with that van, or the first time you get near home with that van, you're taking it and you're dropping it off somewhere and they have to go recover their vehicle. So that's why it's a little bit tougher if you live, the further west you live in the Mississippi, the harder it is to get on with the carrier or a fleet owner. but it is able to happen. So yes, no matter where you live, you can get on with an expedite carrier if everything is agreed upon on all the different aspects of what it entails. I'm looking at a question right now, which is pretty much what I just answered. Saying he lives in Los Angeles and would like to become a van expedite driver, and do I think it's worth it, and can he find a job while living in California? These are the kind of questions that I really have a hard time answering, because they're asking my opinion of whether it's worth it or not, and I can't answer that to everybody. I can't answer everybody's, asking, am I going to make enough money? Am I going to, is it worth it to go out? I can't answer that for you, because I don't know your home situation. I don't know your financial situation. I don't know your work ethic. I don't know your intelligence level. I don't know a lot of things. That's why I just try to give my information from my perspective and try to give out as many numbers as I can, and I try to be as forthcoming as I can about everything and let you make the decision based on yourself, because that's who's got to make the decision, you. And that's why we tell people that drive for a fleet owner before you invest any kind of real money or life changes in expediting. Same would go for hot shotting, semi-driving, anything that's going to put you over the road as a driver. Before you invest any serious life changes or money, you got to get out and test the waters. And a perfect example of that is I just watched a video yesterday. There's a guy who just came out expediting a week ago, and he's going back home. He says he enjoys the driving, the parts of being out on the road. What he's having a tough time with is dealing with the elements, basically. It's hot, and the van he's driving for somebody isn't equipped for real comforts of the different temperatures, as far as hot or cold. I don't know, he might be set up for the cold because he may have a heater in there. Those are more simplified. The heat is the hardest thing for everybody to deal with, because not everybody's got AC units, because it's a serious investment. And as a fleet owner, it's a serious investment to put basically $1,000 unit on top, $1,000 in or more, or roughly around that, into a generator. So you're putting $2,000 or better into a unit that you don't know if somebody's going to go out there and take care of it properly, or use it, abuse it, or even steal it, because that happens. So I got a little off track there, but the point is that I can't answer that question, is it worth it? So that's why you need to go out and test the waters yourself with as little invested and as less trouble as possible as far as changing your life, because it's just an entire lifestyle about expediting. Like this guy mentioned yesterday, that's going home now. It's a simple job. The job itself, as far as to drive, pick up freight, deliver freight, piece of cake. It's all that comes with it, because that's why I call it a lifestyle. That's why several of us call this a lifestyle. This is not a job. If you look at this as a job, you might as well not come out, because it's not a job. It is a lifestyle. It is an entire life-changing deal. All right, next question. Can you use a Transit Connect, Promoter City, I think that's a ProMaster City, Nissan NV200, put in parentheses, a city type of minivan? Now, for expediting as I know it, and the regular expediting, you can't use those vehicles. For one, real expediting, or expediting as I understand it, as most understand it, and what it is over the road. It's an over the road job where you're living in the vehicle and you're over the road going long distances. And they want as much capacity as far as cargo capacity for freight. So they're not into taking on vehicles that are smaller. The smaller vehicles, now, there's a possibility that some local, what they call themselves expediting carriers, they might also call themselves couriers, but those kind of vehicles are going to be used for those kinds of deals, as far as delivering small packages, or just something very small, because you're not going to fit much in there. I mean, there's hardly any cargo space. So yeah, those vehicles are not conducive to be expediting as I do it and as a whole. But there are niches you can find out there to use that kind of vehicle. I can't tell you exactly where to go to get it. I can't name companies or anything, but I know there's several courier companies out there that's just go out and knock on doors and try to drum up some business. I mean, there's just always things out there to use a vehicle to transport stuff. It's just a matter of, it's a little more hustle to do it and might not be as good a pay, but at the same time, it depends on what your trade-off is. Do I want to be home more? Do I want to make more money? What do I want to do? So that's the thing. You got to decide what you want to do as far as getting into this at all. But the smaller vehicles, not going to happen with most of the expediting companies that are out here doing regular expediting. All right, so next question. He asks, what percentage do you put aside of gross earnings for maintenance, as far as oil changes, tires, repairs, etc.? He's actually got a couple of questions in here. As far as that, 10% of my gross. That's what I've done. Others might do a lot more, but 10% of the gross, that's, if you do that, as far as regular maintenance and everything, you should have more than enough money saved up on the side to take care of all of those things. So 10% is what I put aside. Now, with saying that, let me rephrase that. 10% is what I do put aside when I do put it aside. I have money management issues myself at times, so I don't always do it, and it's cost me. So let me stress that point. You should at least put 10% to the side. Other people have different formulas, and that's fine. More, if you end up putting more, obviously it's better, but 10% should suffice, at least at the rate that I earn. 10% is more than enough. But that is one of the key elements. Please put money to the side for maintenance and everything, because when you do have a major breakdown, it's going to be an extreme headache if you don't have that money sitting there. I've run through it myself, and believe me, it sucks. So put the money to the side, but 10% is what I ideally put to the side. Next question, as far as the same guy, second part of his question, about how many miles would you run your van and then turn it in for a new one? Me personally, I don't have a time frame or a certain amount of miles that I'm going to turn it in, because my plan is that when the engine and transmission goes, the rest of the van should still be in good shape if I'm doing what I should do to take care of the vans. So I'll throw a new engine and a new transmission in them. Now, if it's just basically once the van becomes too much of an expense, that's when it's going to be time to trade it in. Like right now, I have 421,000 miles on my other van that I'm having some work done on right now, some major work. The van itself as a whole is still solid. I mean, everything's good about it. So, got to see now how much further that's going to go and go on. Like I said, if it starts to get to the point that it's nickel and diming me, as again, I'll pay attention to my maintenance costs each year, and if it gets to where it's just getting increasingly higher and higher and higher, it's going to be time to trade it in. So that's my answer to that part of the question. I don't have a set mileage, and I don't have a set year. Next part of the question, does my carrier assist with breakdowns out on the roads, or is it all on your dime? It's on the owner's dime, whether you are the one driving it and you're the owner, or whether you drive for a fleet owner. The owner of the van, it's their dime to take care of, and their responsibility to take care of any kind of breakdowns or issues on the road. Now, depending on the relationship with the carrier, if you're in an extreme pinch and they can offer help that you can't get, they may step in. Like I said, that depends on the carrier with the relationship you have. It does happen, but rule of thumb is it's all on the owner. It's all on the owner. Everything's on the owner. All right, guys, so that's going to do it. I think I've rambled on enough. Hopefully you guys are still here. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe if you haven't. Comment any questions you have, please, at any time. I will answer them, whether it's immediately through the comment section or in a video like this. So everybody that's out there driving, man, keep safe, and hopefully you're earning, and stay grinding, man. Holler.